So I made a video recently titled Time to Move On. I feel like that was one of my better videos if you guys want to go check it out. But the premise of that video was how we've been in the LeBron, Steph, KD era for so long that we've kind of seen a whole generation under them not get the love they would usually get, because usually it would have been their generation. Like someone like Giannis was never allowed to become the face of the NBA because Steph and LeBron were still there. And the perfect way to put it, if you look at the championship Giannis won, who won the chip the year before? LeBron. Who won the chip the year after? Steph Curry. Those guys have not gone away. Now, obviously, Jokic is in this conversation too, but Jokic, personality-wise, was never going to be the face of the league. In any other era, Giannis would be the face of the league, but LeBron and Steph have held on for so long that it's probably not going to happen. Because by the time Steph Curry retires, Giannis is going to be mid-30s, and it's going to be Shea, it's going to be Luka, it's going to be Wemby, it's going to be Anthony Edwards, it's going to be their league. But when I was making that video and I was looking at the resume of Giannis, it really hit me how a couple years can change the whole perspective of your entire career. And this is going to sound crazy, but it's even crazier that it might sound crazy. But you look at the resume of Giannis, how bold do I want to be? I was going to say there's still potential for him to be a top 5 player of all time. That's tough, right? That's tough. But there's definitely still potential of him being a top 10 player of all time. I don't know if that's a bold thing to say, but when you think about it, especially in the NBA we're in right now where there's not these dynasties, if you look at the top 5, top 6, 7 players of all time, they're all gonna be 3-time, 4-time, 5-time champions. And that could be a whole different video in itself, how that's gonna change how we rank players all time. We might see a lot more one-time champions being considered greatest of all time. Not greatest, but you get what I'm saying. And again, Jokic and Giannis will be a great case study of it. If they both retire with one championship, how are you gonna put Jokic ahead of Tim Duncan all time? You probably can't, even though you guys can have that debate. But when looking at Giannis heading into his age 31 season, I don't think he's slowing down anytime soon. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't get that feeling. But looking at his resume already, 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA, 5-time All-Defensive, 2-time MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, champion, Finals MVP, and there's always been one player that has been put up as a parallel to Giannis. Not Shaq, right? We hear that one, but the other one is Kevin Garnett. And if you look at it, Giannis is going into the exact year, age-wise, that Kevin Garnett was when he went to Boston. He was 31 when he went to Boston. And it's actually very similar. You look at Kevin Garnett, no, he never won a championship with Minnesota, but the 03-04 season, he wins MVP, goes to the conference finals, then the next 3 years does not make the playoffs. Now, Giannis hasn't been that bad, but I believe Giannis has only won one playoff series since winning a championship. So Kevin Garnett, when he won that MVP, people were legitimately talking about him as the best player in the world. Obviously, you won MVP. But 3 straight years, no playoffs, kind of falling out of relevance, gets traded to Boston, wins DPOY, and wins a championship in that year. And now we don't even look back at those Minnesota years where he didn't win a championship, or we look back and we say, man, they were failing him as a team, and they were failing him as a team, right? And if Giannis does a similar thing, if Giannis gets traded somewhere and wins a championship, we're going to look back at these last 3 years and we're going to look at his stats, and it's not going to be held against him like it might be right now, because I do think it's kind of crazy that Giannis has not been out the first round in 3 years. But instead of focusing on that, if he wins again, that context changes from quite disappointing to one of the greatest peaks of all time. Because since winning a championship, Giannis is averaging 30 points, almost 12 boards, 6 assists, a steal, and a block per game. All-time great numbers, but no one really cares right now because Giannis hasn't been winning. You win, and that recontextualizes everything. And I would say Kevin Garnett is a consensus top 15, maybe top 20 player of all time. And Giannis already kind of has that resume. More MVPs, same number of DPOYs, same number of All-NBA teams. KG has more all-defensive teams, right? And I know I'm comparing them, so it's going to sound stupid for me to say I'm not trying to compare them, I'm trying to compare where they were at this stage in their career and where I believe Giannis is about to go. Because I don't think we are at the end of peak Giannis. I believe we are in the middle of it. And again, I don't want to disrespect Kevin Garnett and what he did in Boston. He won a championship. He won DPOY. He finished third in MVP voting that first year. He did a lot. But I think Giannis leaving at this point, even though he's older, is closer to like LeBron going to Miami than Kevin Garnett going to Boston, right? And of course, it doesn't always work out that way, right? He can end up being Kevin Garnett in Boston. He could end up being Shaq in Miami. Two champions, by the way. But two guys that were no longer that prime version of themselves. I just don't think that's what's going to happen. I think if Giannis leaves, he is going to be dominant, and it's going to catapult him into a different level all time if he goes somewhere else and wins. But another reason why Kevin Garnett is a good example here is because even though Kevin Garnett won that championship, yes, it improved his all-time ranking, but not as much as you would have probably thought in the moment. No one still has Kevin Garnett top 10 all-time, really. And people would have thought that him winning that championship would put him in that territory. And it really didn't move his all-time rankings as much as you would have thought, because MVP Kevin Garnett is not who went to Boston. Yes, he sacrificed, but just in general, he wasn't that same player. If Giannis goes somewhere and is Giannis, it is going to catapult him into a conversation that maybe you thought was over. Maybe you thought that, Jokic had surpassed him and he'll never catch him. But if Giannis goes somewhere else and is Giannis and wins, it's going to recontextualize this whole era. And I know certain Milwaukee Bucks fans are going to be upset. Why are you guys always talking about Giannis going somewhere else? Come on. We seen what happened at Media Day. He gave the quote about exploring other options, all that. He just wants to win, all that. And then right now, a report just came out from Shams that the Knicks were the only other real team he considered, whatever he said, right? I'll have the screenshot up, but it's Giannis, right? Don't get mad at the messenger. It's like if you had a girlfriend, right? And your friend came to you and was like, I seen her with such and such. Would he be mad at your friend? You'd probably brush it off, oh, it wasn't much. Okay, but then you have another friend come tell you. And then you have another friend, like at some point, she's probably looking elsewhere. She's probably exploring her options. She's probably planning her exit strategy. And Giannis keeps soft launching his departure from Milwaukee. And now for the Knicks, the Mikal Bridges trade, which everybody thought was absurd when it happened, is even more absurd. Because you could potentially get Giannis and you traded away all your assets to get Mikal Bridges. The Knicks were doing so well building their team, managing their assets, then they gave it all up for Mikal Bridges. And while every other team, every other big market team is, planning out, looking at 2027 as an option to get Giannis in their door, the Knicks are the ones that said, you know what, we're going to go all in on Mikal Bridges. Kind of crazy. You look at the Lakers, they're planning it out in advance. They're trying to get their money right to potentially get Giannis. The Warriors, 2-year deals, right? Everybody 2-year deals. So when Giannis is a free agent, everybody's off the books, right? So the Knicks are the one team that didn't do that. And I get it. They could have been in the finals last year, right? So I get it. But for Mikal Bridges is crazy. So even though it seems like New York would be the only place Giannis would request a trade to, the only place he'd want to go, in theory, I guess, which is kind of shocking to me. But even if that is the case, Milwaukee's going to have a little bit of self-respect and say, we're not going to trade you for Cat in 2 first-round picks. So I think New York is kind of out the window unless Giannis just really strong-arms his way there. But I'm going to tell you guys where I believe Giannis will end up. And before this recent Knicks news, I would have had like the Lakers or the Warriors kind of lower on the list. But now it makes me think, oh, Giannis really, really wants to be in a big market. And by the way, Giannis, Brunson, I'm sure it could work out, but that's not a great fit in my opinion. Brunson loves, operating in the mid-range, dominating the ball. Cat gives him that spacing. I don't know. I'm sure it could work. It's Giannis, it's Brunson, but Brunson kind of needs the ball. And Brunson's also not someone that you want to be averaging 22, 21 points a game to get the most out of Brunson. Where if you look at someone like Trae Young, which is where I think Giannis is going to end up. And I'm not just saying this now. If you look at it, I don't know. I think it was right after the Bucks got eliminated. I posted the Giannis trade, and it was Giannis to Atlanta, so this is nothing new. I've been saying this, but I think Atlanta has the assets, and that was also before they acquired the draft pick from the Pelicans, so that's another asset they have. But I think a deal centered around Jalen Johnson, Zachary Risacher, and a first-round pick, 2 first-round picks, I think that is going to be the deal. Because if you look around the NBA for teams that have the assets to get Giannis, teams that would be good around Giannis, and a team that Giannis might not mind going to play for, there aren't that many. Now, there are 2 other teams, right? If OKC wants Giannis, they could probably go get Giannis. If they want to include Chet in a deal with picks, they can go get Giannis. But are they really going to do that? I don't think they're going to do that. And the other team is the Rockets. But they're going to give up Şengün? It would take something like that probably. I don't think they're going to do that either. And I'm not saying they should or shouldn't. I just don't think they would. But the Hawks are a team that might be so desperate to have that type of talent in the building that they might do that. And there might be an argument that they shouldn't, right? Depending on how this year goes, and if Atlanta is as good as everyone thinks they are going to be, and Jalen Johnson is an all-star and Risacher is improving as a #1 overall pick, there's a real argument that trading for Giannis would be not a smart thing to do. And the reason why I would be a little bit more bullish on the idea of Trae Young in comparison to a Jalen Brunson or even a Dame is I can see a world where you get the best out of Trae Young with him averaging 18 points a game. I'm not saying that should be his role. I'm not saying that's the ideal situation, but I could see a world where you are getting the most efficient, most disciplined, best version of Trae Young, where he's only averaging 20 points, but he's averaging 11 assists or 19 and 12, whatever, right? I could see that being the best version of Trae Young. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying I could see that world. There's no world where the best version of Dame or best version of Brunson is averaging 10 plus assists. So that's why I could see the fit a little bit more with Trae Young. Now, that team, if they got rid of Risacher and Jalen Johnson, would have a lot of work to do. It would just be Trae Young, Dyson Daniels, Giannis. I think Nikhil signed long-term. I think Okongwu signed. So it'll be a decent team, but they would need to add shooting. I just think that's one of the real possibilities because Jalen Johnson, Risacher, first-round pick, I don't think a lot of teams are actually going to beat that offer. And I just feel like the Hawks are more likely than OKC or Houston to go all in on Giannis. It is a big market in Atlanta, not necessarily the basketball market. The Hawks tried to hire Giannis's agent before as a GM. I think there's some connections there. And then the other place where there's connections is Toronto. And of course, everyone just put Giannis and Masai together. That's obviously no longer the case, but I think I look at Toronto and the way they are built, and there's a lot of teams you could say just add Giannis, but the way they are built, if they could potentially move Scottie Barnes in a Giannis deal, you look at the pieces surrounding Brandon Ingram in the Chris Middleton role, Jakob Poeltl, that backline defense with some playmaking, Emmanuel Quickley as that sniper, RJ Barrett, just a guy, Swiss Army knife, do everything. It would be a great fit around Giannis, and I think it's a possibility, depending on how Scottie Barnes looks this year. But Scottie Barnes, and I believe they have all their upcoming picks. They have Colin Murray-Boyles if they want to include him in a deal. I'm sure Milwaukee would want that. But to me, that's the other team. And again, if Toronto were to do that, people would look at that team and say, oh, that's not a championship contender. But I feel like if having a true #1 would slot in the rest of those guys perfectly. Jakob Poeltl, Brandon Ingram, Emmanuel Quickley next to a true #1, I think is approaching championship worthy. Maybe I'm too high on those guys though, let me know. But I kind of got away from the point because that Shams report about the Knicks came out while I was recording this video. But all that going back to the beginning, I don't believe we are at the end of peak Giannis. I believe we are in the middle of it. And I believe Giannis going somewhere is, again, not going to be Kevin Garnett to Boston. It's not going to be Shaq to Miami. It's going to be closer to LeBron to Miami. It's going to be closer to Kareem to LA. Now, we are in a different NBA landscape where you don't just go to final after final, even if you have the best team, right? There's too much parity. So it's a different way to evaluate it. But I think if Giannis goes somewhere and is his dominant self and is at least competing at the highest level, if he's getting to the conference finals, maybe, I mean, of course he would have to win another one, but you get what I'm saying? Like if he's consistently at the top of these conversations in these battles, I think there's still a lot left for him to gain in terms of his all-time ranking. And I'm not predicting this, but you look at all the players in the NBA right now, I think there's still a chance for Giannis to be the highest ranked among them besides LeBron, depending on the next 4 to 5 years of his career. That sounds crazy, but I believe there is a world where 5 years from now, people have Giannis above Jokic, above KD, maybe even above Steph Curry. I'm not predicting that, but Steph Curry got a ring at 33. LeBron got a ring at 35 as the best players on a team. Maybe you could have that argument with LeBron, but he was the best player on that team. Giannis is only 30. He's only 30. He could be the best player in the NBA the next 5 years. I'm not saying he is, but that's not a crazy statement, right? You look at the numbers he's putting up. If he's in a winning situation, it's going to change the way we look at everything. 30 points, 11 boards, 6 assists. If he's doing that while winning, it's going to change. So let me know what you guys think. Am I overthinking it? Do you believe there's any chance in the world that 5 years from now, people say Giannis was better than Steph Curry? I don't think that's far-fetched at all. We're talking about a 2-time MVP already. Who knows what these next couple years are going to look like, and it's probably not going to be in Milwaukee. It's probably going to be in a bigger market. There's probably going to be more media attention on him. He's probably going to be a bigger star than he ever has been. I think it's only up from here with Giannis, and this might be an MVP year in Milwaukee. So I just think we think about Giannis as not a finished book, but we kind of put a cap on his all-time ranking. Because after he won that championship, it seemed like we were watching the beginning or the beginning stages of a top 10 player, top 5 player of all time. After that championship, his resume up to that point, it seemed like, again, we were watching one of those guys, and maybe we still are. Maybe he's going to be a top 5, top 6 player all time, depending on these next 4 to 5 years. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Please like, comment, subscribe. It'll mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm out. Peace.